Our speaker today is someone who has his finger on the pulse of Chicago theater, dining, and things of that kind of interest. I had the pleasure of being interviewed by him several years ago myself for a book that I had co-authored. And I'm sure he's going to regale us with all kinds of interesting stories, factoids, anecdotes, and so forth. So please give a Tuesday Club welcome to Al Bresloff.
Thank you.
And I forgot to mention, he also has a radio show on Sundays on WCPT from 2 to 3.
Thank you. I'm used to being in a studio, a small studio, instead of being in a group like this, but being in a group is fun. Theater is something that everyone knows that we have in Chicago. And I'll bet you that most of you don't know how many theater companies there are in the city. It's just Chicagoland area, we'll call it that. Anybody want to take a guess?
10.
Let's 3 digits. 3 digits. There are 147 theater companies in the Chicagoland area. There's a theater that most people don't know that's right in Glenview, on Glenview Road and Waukegan Road, called the Oil Lamp. And most people don't know this history of Oil Lamp. Oil Lamp started in a living room. It was done in a home where people would have people come for dinner. They would sit in the dining room and have dinner. After dinner, they would move to the living room. The dining room would become the stage, and a play would go on. And then after the play, they would have coffee with the actors. That's how theater can be. Theater can be anywhere where somebody wants to be entertained. But we have some amazing things going on right now with upheaval and new things going on. I got into the world of theater when I was 8 years old. My grandmother took me to a play at a Jewish theater that was on 8th Street, if I'm not mistaken, in Chicago. I saw a play. I saw these people doing things that were not normal, but they weren't themselves. And being a middle child, having a younger brother and an older brother, I slipped into it and found that by being somebody else, I had my own identity finally. And I became an actor. I started doing plays. I worked as an actor until I decided, okay, it's not an easy life. I'm going to become something else. And I went into sales, got married, had kids. But then I got into community theater, and I still had a handle in theater, went to theater. And then as the years went by, I went to work doing some consulting work for a newspaper. And the newspaper said to me, "We want you to stay on with us, not be a temporary." And I said, "You make me your theater critic," and you got me. And I became their critic. They were a Spanish newspaper. I don't speak Spanish. So they had to translate everything. And I have no idea if they ever wrote what I wrote. And then the internet came to be. And everyone said, you can take what you're doing and put it on the internet. And my wife said, just call it Around the Town Chicago. See what happens. So I did. This is 20 some odd years ago. And from there, a radio show became part of it because I had been in Yellow Pages, which everybody knows that I got a group that knows what Yellow Pages are. When I talk to a young group, they raise their hand and say, "You mean Google used to be on paper?" But just really, if you think about it, that's what it is. So what happened was I had a salesperson who went to WCPT, which is a local radio station, 820 AM. He went there to apply for a job to sell advertising. The station manager called me for a referral. We started talking. And about 15 minutes into the conversation, he said, "What do you do on Sunday afternoon?" I said, "It depends on the Sunday. I go bowling in the morning. Sometimes I take a nap Sunday afternoon. Sometimes one of the grandkids is playing sports somewhere, so I go to that, or I go to a play." So he said, "I've got something for you. Every Sunday, I'd like you to be on the radio. I'm watching, I look at your website, I see the reviews, and I'm hearing your voice, and you belong here." I'm in my 4th year, and Sunday is my favorite day now. Every day is just a day. Sunday, I go bowling in the morning. Then I go and do a radio show. Then I either go see a play or go see my grandkids. And who could ask for anything more? All right. So I don't know how many of you know what's going on in the theater world in Chicago, but recently we lost a theater. Victory Gardens had a little thing called political. This is a political, I guess political unrest would be the way to call it. Our world has changed, and everything is with gender, genderless, binary, who's gender queer. I mean, they have all these new terms. When I write a review now, I have to be very careful about whether I can say he or she. A lot of times it's they and them. So I was getting all these things. I'd write a review, and all of a sudden the next morning I'd get to say, no, she can't be a she. I said, wait a second. She's a female. She's playing a female. The actress doesn't matter. The part, the role is the wife. I'm calling it she. No, you can't put the review that way. It has to be they. I said, but there's only one person. If there's only one person, it can't be a they. It's got to be a it. They said, no, you can't do that. So what I've learned to do now is rethink the words that I use in order not to have gender at all. So people now notice when they read my stuff, I don't have too much gender unless I look in the program and it says he or she next to their name, then I'm okay. I can do it. It's a scary thing. And then other situation that we're running into, which closed that theater, was a political part of it. It's the new black type of thing where everybody has to believe that black is perfect and Black Lives Matter. Well, there was a black theater company who got upset because the artistic director, who was black, was fired. Well, it had nothing to do with them, and they pulled their show. They all left, and they wrote some nasty things, and that closed the theater. And it was a theater that was so important to the city because it was one of the first theaters that was nationally acclaimed before Steppenwolf got all the national awards and before Chicago Shakespeare got all the awards. Victory Gardens was the theater. They moved to the Biograph. They did beautiful work. So we're hoping that we can get them to come back and somebody will restore that and keep that theater going. Things have happened at Writers Theater right here in Glencoe. A lot of people, I'm sure, in this area are used to going there. They had an upheaval there. That one is fixed. They have new people, new management, and they are doing some marvelous, marvelous pieces of work. They have a show now called Once. It's already been held over. They've added on about 12 to 14 performances. It is pretty much sold out. But if you can get a ticket, go get a ticket. It's a wonderful story that was brought here from the Broadway tour and was okay. What they're doing at Writers is an amazing way of telling the story. Every musician is an actor. Every actor is a musician. They sing, they play instruments. There's hardly any set at all. And it's a pure love story about an Irish family, and they're in a bar, and he's a writer, and he writes songs, and he writes love songs, and his beautiful, beautiful girlfriend that he wrote all of these for moves to New York and breaks up with him. So he meets this girl who's in the bar, her Czechoslovakian, who tells him that his music is amazing and that he should go record his music. By recording his music, they'll fly him to New York, he'll become a big star, and his love will come back to him. She sells him on this, but while she sells him on this, she falls in love with him, and he falls in love with her. And that's the story of Once, with some beautiful music and just well orchestrated. It's done. So that's a local theater that will give you something great. How many of you ever go to Milwaukee to go to the theater? Have you ever thought of it? All right. Milwaukee has some of the best theater that you can find. And the beauty of Milwaukee is you can park right in front of the theater, sometimes free. Prices are half the price. And yes, it's an hour drive, but it's an hour and a half sometimes to go downtown. In fact, I took my grandson to see it play, and he took a nap going down, and he ate dinner in the car. It was a 2-hour drive to get downtown from Northbrook. And when we got home, it took 25 minutes to get home. And he said to me, "Did you take a shortcut?" And I said, "No, that's just the way it is." But I go to Milwaukee on a regular. I do have somebody who writes for me up there, and she sends her reviews to me. So if you go to Around the Town Chicago, all Milwaukee plays are listed there as well. We will be starting Around the Town Milwaukee next year, because I figured 80 years old, I got to start something new, right? You can't just sit back and relax on what you've started to do. But Milwaukee is a great place to go, and parking is cheaper. The theater tickets are cheaper. It's less hassle, less aggravation, and there's some great restaurants all around the theater district. They have a very nice theater district. Does anybody have any questions about theater, about things that you're asking? You know, there's things coming, things going. I'll try to answer whatever I can for you on that. But I don't have a real plan type of thing to talk about theater unless you want to know my whole story. I don't know that you want to know that.
Mike, we want to take questions after your presentation, so we can have a microphone walk around, and then we'll get them from Zoom as well. Thank you.
Okay, if anybody wants to, I really, really enjoy answering specific questions if I can, because that's all the stuff that's in my head. I will tell you that my caps, the cap that I wear, people might want to ask what this is. I found out when I got on the radio that because of technology, I'm not just on the radio. The internet, which is there, captures us while we're talking on the radio. So people who go to WCPT.com are actually seeing us. So the first time I was on, I was wearing a cap from a restaurant in Northbrook, and somebody called me up and said, "Wait a second, we're giving you gift cards to give away on your show, and you got a different restaurant." So I now have 32 caps. And I have some plays that when they bring a play in sometimes for the preview before it goes to New York, they give us caps on opening night. So I have all these caps. Now I have to remember which one to wear every Sunday. So my wife will tell me tomorrow, "You're wearing this one." So I throw it in the car to make sure I have it when I get to the radio station. But I do a lot of restaurants, and this is a brand new, they just opened up one here. They have like 9 of them now, called Brunch Cafe on Waukegan Road and Lake Cook. They just opened up on last Friday. It's a regular, that's the new thing. I guess they open 7 o'clock and open till 2, and it's breakfast and lunch. So they call it brunch. And this one is brunch. You know, they have different ones that are out there there's a brunch factory and a brunch this and a brunch, and that nobody has anything called Lumper. Nobody has a lunch and supper place called Lumper. Okay, so that young lady was going to ask a question. Which one are you talking to, Raven? Yes, okay, it is. It's a very interesting, as long as you're talking about internet, the Raven Theater. Anybody know the Raven Theater? It's on Granville and Clark Street. In 1956, it was a grocery store, and I was a bagger there. I was a guy who put the stuff and carried it out to the parking lot. It is now a theater. I think they're celebrating their 25th, or maybe more. Might be more than that. It's got to be 45 or 50 years. But this theater started somewhere else, and they took over the grocery store. There's a play now that is a right to be forgotten. And it's a story about the internet where somebody did something years and years ago, and he's trying to date, but he has to use a different name, because if he uses his real name and somebody checks him out on the internet, they'll find out about his stalking past. He was a stalker. He never did anything. He was an innocent guy who had a crush on a girl and was hoping that one day she would say, "Hey, that's my man." and he followed her around and she reported him. So there was a police report. And years later, it came out. And it's a very interesting play. I think it's got another week to run. I think it runs through April, maybe to the end of March. But it's an interesting play. I liked it very, very much. Okay, so thank you for bringing that up. I can't remember every play. I see 3-4 plays a week, and in between the other nights, I go out and eat dinner. So that's what I do in my retirement. This is how I retired. There's some.
Are we taking questions now, or?
Why not? Because I can answer questions specifically about some shows if people want to know about them.
I'm going to leave my mask on. Can you hear me?
I'm not wearing my hearing aids because I didn't think I needed to. So.
Okay, I'll talk louder. I love musical theater, and I noticed that for a long time. They would be here for quite an extended period of time. And now there seems to be a trend where they're here maybe 6 weeks and they're gone. They're rotating much faster. And I wonder if you know anything about that.
Yeah, Broadway in Chicago is what you're talking
Yes,
about.
yes.
And some of the shows are real scary. They asked me to interview people on the radio, and I interviewed them. And then the show is going to be closed by the time I get there to even go to do the article. Annie, they brought in for 2 weeks. I'm going tomorrow night to see Tina Turner. That's going to be 4 weeks, I think. But here's the situation as they explained it. On the road show, the cost of bringing a show and touring is so expensive. And when they were doing 30 days in some shows, they were getting 20% to 30% of the house empty most days. Friday night, Saturday night, they did okay. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday nights, and during the winter, worse. So supply and demand. If we only have 7 shows, everybody's got to go to those 7 dates. They don't have a choice. They got to take what there is. And they felt that was the way to go because of the cost factor. It's the same thing. I just interviewed people that they do shows in Waukegan. They do these kind of concert things that are one night. Okay. Sometimes they do 2, but mostly they're 1. So I interviewed the people who are doing Queen Thursday night, the guy who does Freddie. And he said they're touring. They go to 63 cities in 65 days. It's a big theater, Genesee. It's almost 3,000 seats. There's no way that they're going to sell out. And if they tried to do 2 or 3 nights, they'd have 150, 200, 300 people on a weeknight. By doing it the way they do it, it seems to attract more people and makes people commit. It's like the theaters, Marriott and all these theaters that have where you subscribe and you get bonuses by doing that, you're allowed to change. They need to do that because I don't know if you know, but when you go to the theater, the price you paid for a ticket is not enough to cover that theater. I'm talking about the small, not the Broadway stuff, but all these, like the Raven and all these theaters, they don't even make their payroll based on the ticket sales. So if they didn't get money from different foundations and people sponsoring them, they wouldn't be able to survive. They wouldn't be able to exist. A lot of these are non-equity houses. Now they just became equity, but the non-equity, in a lot of cases, when you go see a play, the people that are in that play are not making any money. They're doing it to build something on their resume and because they love doing it. Sometimes they get their expenses. Sometimes you go to a place like, I don't know if you know, there's a theater called Theo Ubike. It's now moved. They used to be on Glenwood in Rogers Park, and now they're on Howard Street. The city of Evanston brought them there and helped them build everything. The actors that are in there that are non-equity get a piece of what the ticket sales were. So at the end of the night, they know they had $650 profit for the night. There's 9 actors. That money is divided between them. That's their pay. and it's independent contractor, they have to pay taxes on it. They don't get any, nobody takes anything out. So it's a different world. And it is true that in 5 days, 3 days, sometimes for a show, it's frustrating. And if you don't know far enough in advance, I mean, now you get, I'm putting up next week, I'm going to list all of next year's Broadway and Chicago plays. The dates that they're coming, I'll have it all there under news. So I have theater, I have cabaret, I do restaurants, and all these things are itemized. I used to do a lot more dance. I used to have a writer who covered dance for me. I don't have that writer anymore. I'm not one to talk about ballet. That's not my thing. So in fact, I was in the interview I did the other day for Annie. When I did the play, I tried out to be Rooster. Rooster does a big song called Easy Street with a big dance. And I was interviewing the guy who's playing it here in Chicago. And he said, you got the song, you sound good. I said, yeah, but the problem is they saw me dance. And they said to me, you're going to play FDR. I said, FDR's in a wheelchair. That's how you can dance. Although years later, I did The King and I did dance. I did the big dance as the king. So I did Shall We Dance? Yes.
When I was a kid on the west side of Chicago, my mother used to take me to the Yiddish Theater on 12th Street.
Right.
Of course, English wasn't her first language, and everything was done in Yiddish, and she was very comfortable there, and I started to enjoy it. Whatever happened to that venue?
Oh, that's the only theater that I'm going back to. The A Street Theater became the Harris Theater, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, this goes back to the 50s.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but it's still, there is a theater on 8th Street. It's 800 South, it's right by the Hilton. And I think they've had a couple names for it. It's not used right now. It's like the Studebaker Theater was closed for 30 years or 28 years. Then they reopened it. They brought in a play that was a terrible show that flopped called Skates. A big investment thing these people did, rebuilding the theater. That one is going to be reopening with other things, but it might be at Goodman Theater or DePaul. No, DePaul may have taken that over for a while as part of their.
We're talking about the Yiddish Theater, not.
The Yiddish Theater has been gone for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. How many people know Yiddish? How many people speak Yiddish? Okay. You guys want to open a theater? Would I open the theater to draw 2 people, 4 people? It's not the population anymore.
Maybe you can discover another Menashe Skolnick or somebody.
Maybe. Yes.
You came out of the gate so fast, we couldn't write down your radio station, your website.
Okay. I'll slow it down.
Thank
For those writing and want it's
That was it. If you could just,
WCPT 8 WCPT, which is 820 on your dial. AM radio. Yeah. Well, you wouldn't have, you could
what about your website?
aroundthetownchicago.com.
Around town,
Chicago.com.
Chicago. Thank you for stopping, slowing down. I appreciate it.
No problem. No problem.
Thank you.
She needs a microphone. Oh,
There's a lot of television advertising. Chinese dance group. I'm sure I don't know how to pronounce it, but who knows? But I'm sure it's a great show. It's been here before. I see it. I watch a lot of programs dealing with news and current events, and they have about 10 commercials a day. And they're in Chicago from the 6th to the 9th. Then they're going to be in the suburbs. After I've seen those commercials so often, I know exactly what it is. I think I could almost do those dance numbers. What is it with maybe, I don't know what the rest of your feelings are, but are they going to sell out at the auditorium again?
I don't know what will have. Last time they came in, last year, they canceled 2 of the shows. They didn't do them all. They were supposed to be here for 3 different places. Their sales were terrible. They've been, they used to do McCormick Place, and they did it for about 6 years in a row. And then after COVID, during COVID, they didn't come back. And then last year they came back and it was a rough year for them. So the advertising, there's a lot of it. And I don't understand how they can spend the money they're spending on advertising. It just seems way outlandish. I know how Broadway in Chicago works. They give WGN tickets. And WGN has tickets to give away to their employees and stuff. Instead of paying for the advertising, they do it on what's called a barter system. It's like the theater up in the Genesee. I promote their shows for them, and I do giveaways every Sunday, and they give me tickets. So, like, if anybody here is a Meatloaf fan and you want to go Saturday night to see them do the Meatloaf thing, I've got tickets here. And it's actually an interesting story. Meatloaf has some pretty good music. Meatloaf himself was sick and didn't play, and his right-hand man took over because he wanted the band to keep working. And when Meatloaf was healthy, Meatloaf would just go in and do the show. When Meatloaf wasn't, they did the show without him. I understand he passed away, but they kept the band going and they kept the name going. And they're doing it they added somebody who was an American Idol winner. That's the new thing they're doing. You find an American Idol person, put them on, and thousands of people will come. Well, I guess if you're American Idol nut, you'll go for it, but I wouldn't.
Sir,
Yes,
the best play I ever saw was a 2-person play at Raven, put on by the Rivendell Company. Are they still in force?
yes. Rivendell is a female-orientated theater company on Ridge, right near Senn High School.
Oh, really?
It's
Okay.
there's a little pizza place next door, which when I went to school at Senn, that pizza guy was there. There's no place to park. It's just a pickup and delivery place. I don't know how he exists. This is 50 some odd years. He's still there making pizzas. The pizza maker, Rivendell does plays. In fact, their next play is opening. It's a premiere next week, I think, or 10 days. They're run by women. It's all females that run it. They have a few men that are on for plays that have a male part. Otherwise, it's all women. They do fantastic work. Right. And it probably didn't make money. And that's the problem, is that sometimes you look at a play, like, if anybody is familiar with what used to be called the Light Opera Works. Okay. Now, Light Opera Works was a phenomenal organization. They did things like Mikado and light opera is what they did. And then they did musicals, but they did it with 1 or 2 equity people, all the rest non-equity, local talent. But they did it with a 26 to 28 piece orchestra. They had music like it's meant to be. And the problem they had was they did it at Northwestern University, where it was impossible to find a parking place. You could go nuts doing that. Now they moved and they're doing things at Northlight, where Northlight is, at the North Shore Center for Performing Arts in Skokie. But they've changed management and they've done some shows that were a little sketchy. They did Zorro, the musical, and people were walking out halfway through the show. So but I don't want to criticize. I want to tell you that what they've done now is they went back to the way you're supposed to be. Not a big full orchestra, but they picked a play that people will enjoy. And they did it, they're opening they just opened last week. They're doing Avenue Q. And it's adorable. It is the best show they've done since the new people took over. because they had done a good Mamma Mia, but this. Yeah, Lacage was okay, but they brought guests in for that. They brought somebody in who did Lacage who's not from this area, specialist who does that show on a regular basis. What I liked about this is that they used people. The director of this show was from another theater company. The musical director was from another theater company. So they're working together to make a theater to bring it back to where it should be. And I do have, if there's a way to do it, I have a pair of tickets to give away for that play. So I don't know how we can do it. We can find something where we can everybody can write their name on a piece of paper. If you can go to see that show or you want to go see that show, let's write your name on a piece of paper, your name and your email address. And I'll be happy to do a drawing, and whoever gets it, gets it. Okay, I've got some other theater tickets I can give away too. Yes, you have a question and a microphone.
I do. I have a comment. I belong to the organization called the Saints.
Oh,
How much feedback do you get from the theater? And I mean, I enjoy volunteering as do our friends.
The Saints are exactly what they are. This is the Saints. They are an amazing group, and anybody can join it. It's ushers. Those are the ushers, and especially in the smaller theater companies, they can't have ushers. They're not like going to, and Andy Frayne is not going to show up. The Saints are a group of people who pay to do this. They do have an annual fee, but they get to go to a lot of plays, and they hand out the programs, they take the tickets. And then and we all know when we're sitting in the theater, when the Saints close the doors and go to their seats, the play is about to begin. That's when the announcement comes. When the Saints come marching in, I know the play is about to begin. And that's it. All right, somebody else? Yes.
I have a question. I have the microphone.
Oh, she's got the mic.
Yeah, you do dining as well as theater. And I have a dining question.
Wait.
I said you do dining as well as theater. I have a dining question. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. I had read that the best restaurant in Evanston was called La Tour. It's a French restaurant. It formerly was another name, and they changed to a different location, changed the name. Are you familiar with it? Do you think it's the best restaurant in Evanston?
I don't believe it is the best restaurant in Evanston, but I do. It's a good restaurant. The question, when you say a best, everybody's got different tastes. I've gone to restaurants that people say they are great, and I'm not excited about it when I go. And I've gone to places where I went to a place in Pilsen, which is I was on 18th and Racine, which I haven't been in that area in a long, long time. That was a Polish area when I was a kid. Now it was Spanish, and now it's changing. Now Pilsen is becoming millennials, and value, everything is going sky high, and prices. These people told me when they first got their lease on this restaurant, before it took 2 years to open because of what was going on with the COVID thing, they were offered this rent at $600 a month, and during COVID it went up to $3,400 a month because it's on a corner and it's a key location and has a parking lot, and nobody else has one. But restaurant was magnificent, very small menu, Mexican food in a neighborhood that's no longer Mexican. Oh, I can't remember the name of it, Joe. I can't remember the name, but you go to my website and go and look at restaurants and you'll find it. Okay, you can't miss it. It's the only one in Pilsen because that's in the title. Yes, please talk to me because I don't want your arm to hurt.
I go to a theater in Lake Forest. What do you know about that?
Citadel?
Yeah.
Okay.
They bring in groups. What I noticed is they bring in groups rather than individuals, but
No,
maybe-
Citadel is one of my favorite little theaters. Okay. Most people don't even know it's there. They drive down Waukegan Road and they pass the school and there's a theater in there and they've been around for a long time. They do all kinds of shows. They do some musicals. They do have programs for little kids for theater. Citadel just did a show, I think it just ended, called Christians, which was a unique show because it was part of the show was done where everybody's using video stuff now, but they had a screen behind the actors that had a choir, and the choir looked like they were really sitting there, and they weren't. It was all done by video. And the woman sitting behind me kept saying, that woman is blinking at me. I said, she's not even real. She kept saying, yes, she is. I said, no, she's not. She kept the whole thing. She taps me just moved. Nope, she moved. It's a video. Finally, at intermission, she saw the screen go dark. And the girl that was in there was sitting 2 rows over. She was there with her family to see the play. And then she realized that I was right. But Citadel does some nice work. It's in the Lake, I guess it was Lake Forest High School at one time. Now it's something else, Lake Forest Community Center. They have some classes there. It's a very small theater. It's about 240 seats. You feel like you're in a school assembly hall and like the teacher's going to come out and have a meeting with you. You go, everything is downhill. So instead of straining your neck this way to see the theater, you're looking down, or if you're in the first row, you might feel like you're in the play, because if you cross your leg, you could hit an actor or something. But they've done some nice work, and they do a mix. They do at least one musical a year. They just recently did what's with the plant was Seymour and all that stuff. Little Shop of Horrors. They did a very nice job of that. Last year, I think they did Charlie Brown. Speaking of Charlie Brown, anybody have any grandkids they want to go to Marriott to see Charlie Brown? You do? I have a ticket for 4, a family of 4 to go see Charlie Brown at Marriott. Okay, so you want to give her your name? I need your name and address, an email address, and we'll give you a certificate before you leave today. Okay?
Would you comment on House of Mormon?
What?
Would you comment on House of Mormon? We were going to get tickets.
Okay, there's 2. You got to make sure we get the right show because
The
there's
one downtown.
Yeah, they just did a show about
CIBC.
called The Book of Mormon,
Yep,
and there's a
that's
Book of Mormon.
that's
Okay,
what I
Book of Mormon is about the same kind of thing, except they come to Ethel Merman's house. And it's a very cute, they just did it in Skokie. The Book of Mormon, it hasn't opened yet. It's coming next week, I think, or the week after. I just got my invite. Every production is different. And one of the things I always tell people who say to me, I've seen that play. You know what? You haven't seen that play. You've seen a version of that play. Every director has a different vision than the last director. Every actor interprets a character different. Every stage is different. Seeing something in the round. For example, Marriott Theater just did a marvelous the Big Fish with no set. It's never been done without a set before. And this production caught you into it because you were concentrating on the people, the actors, the songs, the story, rather than the big fish. You didn't have anything like that. Everybody overdoes it sometimes. And the beauty of a theater like Marriott is because they are in the round, they have no choice. They can't have a real set because they'd be blocking 390 people would say, hey, I can't see anything. What am I paying for? So they have to do it this way. But the Book of Mormon is an interesting story. It's an interesting musical. I don't love it. Okay. I will go see it, or I'll send one of my writers to take that night off and go do a restaurant. But it's if the story is about love, it's about love of religion. It's about love itself. You've never seen it? Okay. It's enjoyable. The music is catchy and it's a fun evening. The Book of Mormon was actually funnier.
Sunday, 20 radio. What time are you on?
2:00 in the afternoon.
And I have another question. These actors that don't get paid and that, how do they survive with these,
They all have
Oh.
jobs.
Should I repeat myself?
No, okay. actors who are not getting paid to act, they all have jobs. They work another job. A lot of waiters and waitresses. If you saw, Netflix did a special. They took Jonathan Larson's his show, other than Rent, he had Tick Tick Boom, and they made a movie of it. Tick Tick Boom is a phenomenal story of how Jonathan Larson wrote Rent. Okay, that's what the story's all about. As a play, it's 3 people. In the film version, they had a lot of people. And if you saw that, he was working in a restaurant and on Sundays, brunch, and they did us like Sunday in the Park with George. They made it Sunday in the park with, Sunday in the restaurant with Jonathan, which was very adorable. But if you ever have a chance to see the show, Tick Tick Boom, the actual play, see it. They just did it in one of the theaters in Chicago, one of the small theaters. They did it in a gender bender situation where they had all the characters being played by the opposite sex. And it got confusing. If I didn't know the story and I didn't know who was who, I would have had a problem with it. There were 4 or 5 people in the theater that said, why don't they dress who they are? Why don't they play who they are? It's like, the question is, everything has to be done in certain ways today. It's like we were talking about it with the people from out Chicago. If you listen to 820, they're on earlier in the morning on Sunday. And one of the situations that you have today is that racial things have changed. And there has to be this and there has to be that. And yet I've never seen Porgy and Bess done with a Jewish guy with a beard playing Porgy. Okay, just... you wouldn't see Tevye doing that. Okay. All right.
Okay, I'm looking for a source to simply find out currently what theaters are playing which plays. Where should I look?
There's a website in Chicago called theaterinchicago.com. Theater is, now always remember, theater can be R-E-N-E-R. Okay, so this is theater R-E. Theaterinchicago.com. Mark started this about 25 years ago. And what it was is that all of us, when we write our reviews and post them on our websites, send him the note that we have it, and he links all of us. So what happens is you pick a play and it'll say there's 10 reviews and here's what each one has said. And then you can go from the snippet, you can click on and you can go directly to that website and see that particular review. So all of us, he'll give it overall. So let's say 7 people gave it highly recommended and 3 gave it recommended. He'll have that on there. So right away, okay, all the reviewers seem to be positive on this. Yeah, maybe I should go. And you buy your tickets. But the whole idea of it originally was not just for reviews, but that all the theater companies could look at it and know what was opening when, so they wouldn't open 2 or 3 plays on the same night. I have times where I'm invited to come to a play. The opening is the same as another opening. And sometimes I get openings that are at 2:00 on a Sunday afternoon. A little hard for me to be at an opening when I'm on air. And I'm not going to tape my show. They always, just tape your show. I like being live. Part of what I do on my show is have call-ins. People can call in. I give away dinners. I give away theater tickets. It's all about, and I give away meal programs. There's a place called Meal Village where they deliver food to your home. I give it away. Okay. I want people to try new things, and it helps. In my opinion, I'm helping the restaurants. I'm helping because they're going to get new people. I'm helping the theaters. Marriott tells me when I give away tickets for them that 8 out of 10 of the people that come in with those tickets end up becoming subscribers, which means long term. So it's good for the theater. It's good for the person that got to go. It's like when I go to a kid's play, my grandkids are too old to go with me to talk about them. So I go to, again, there's no Hertz Rent-A-Kid. So what I do is I go to a theater and I find a family that has a little girl or a little boy about 5 or 6, and I'll ask them if their child can be they'll help me out. All they got to do is at the end of the show, tell me what they felt, what they liked, and I will put them on my website. I will talk about them on the radio, and then I give them 4 or 5 gifts for other things they can go to. It's easy to get these kids to want to go to theater. And then they ask me for more plays. And there's more kids' plays. They become my child writer that I don't even have to go with them anymore. They send me their email, the mothers and fathers helping. Got to have little kids' opinion. Who cares what I think? If I'm going to take my kids, if I'm someone who's got 2, 3 kids, do I want to make that investment and spend money on those if my kid's not going to like it? Doesn't matter what I like.
Al, excuse me. I'm going to have to interrupt you because Ron Mantegna's got a bunch of people in the Zoom world who want to ask questions.
Okay.
So Ron, it's yours.
Thank you, Bob. The first question is a quick one. We want to repeat the site that you said for it's theaterinchicago.com, right? Theaterinchicago.com. Okay.
Theaterinchicago.com is a website that has everything.
Got it. Thank you. My brother is a Chicago actor, Joe Mantegna. Are there any great collaborations in Chicago theater today, as we saw with playwright David Mamet and actor Joe Mantegna? Is anything coming up that you might recall?
I'm sorry, but I'm not hearing.
Elliot, could you repeat, or Bob, could you repeat the question about collaborations in Chicago, like David Mamet and actor Joe Mantegna?
Not very clear.
Questions out. All right. Thanks. Hi there. This is Jill here. Ron, I'm just going to read out the question from Zoom if I can. Sorry. Just getting to it. Was it a question of yours, Ron?
Yes. Are there
All right,
any?
here it is. I found it. Al, can you hear me okay?
I hear you
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah, mine's booming out. Are there any great collaborations in Chicago theater today, as we saw with playwright David Mamet and actor Joe Mantegna, who's Ron's brother?
Well, there are not too many that are going on right now. There are some new things that are happening, but they're not Chicago type people. There are people who kind of get involved with theater and they're from other parts of the country. And some of the theater companies have, like the show I saw tonight, last night at the Goodman, is written through a period of time. They show, they try it out, they write a little bit, then they come back and they workshop it and they do all these things. But there aren't as many collaborations as there used to be where we know the people. There's new people all the time and young people that are writing, but there are theater companies that run these things where you can come there and see their plays and react to their plays. In fact, I'm going to be talking about one on Sunday, which I can't talk about, but I'll be announcing it this Sunday. A theater company that has 3 shows that they're doing that with, where people can get all 3 and get to go to them, and there's no charge, and their opinions and they help to put the plays together.
Jill, you better ask the questions, Jill.
All right, thanks, Ron. I don't think you got to this one, Ron. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is anything happening at the Skokie Theater?
Yes, Skokie theaters are on a regular basis. They just finished having the wonderful The Book of Mormon, and periodically they have shows, and they're running a thing which is, I guess it's almost over. They're doing Skokie's Got Talent, like America's Got Talent. They have people who send in videos and then they go down and do a judging thing. But they're doing 4 or 5 shows a year on their own, and then they're renting the space out to others. So other groups come in, and I know Stacy Flaster, who has a group of kids shows. They do smaller versions of the big musicals, where seventh and eighth graders, and then she has one that's fifth and sixth graders. They do all their performances at Skokie.
And Jill, that one about
Someone-
Mike Nussbaum,
Someone just said that Rumors is coming up as well.
That might be their next show. I don't know if it's theirs or if a rental is coming in, but they do shows they do have 5, I think, for the year.
Right. I think, I
there's
don't know
one
if you
more,
watched this,
Jill. if
Ron.
you
Do you remember
scroll
Mike
up.
Nussbaum and Jack Wallace? 2 great old timers of Chicago theater. Mike is 99 and might still be doing things.
And he is doing things. And one of the things about Mike Nussbaum that most people don't know is how many push-ups he can do every day. Up until recently, until his 88th birthday, he did 88 push-ups every day. When he became 89, he split them. He did 40 and then he'd do the rest of them. But the amazing thing is watching him on stage, he never misses a line. His memory is uncanny. And when you go afterwards, some of the theaters have a little reception after an opening. He knows who everybody is. And he came up to me at the last one at one of the theaters and he said to me, you know, you spelled my name wrong. He said, 1997, I gave him only 1 S. And I said, listen, I've got Bresloff. I had 2 S's people gave me, I didn't want them. And I had my name as Alan. At school, they kept ALLAN. I said, get the L out of there. It's ALAN.
Someone asked, what's Nussbaum doing now?
Right now, as far as I know, he's not doing anything. Somebody talked with him about doing a show at Timeline. There is a show that they want him to do, but I don't know if he's going to do out. He'll be at the Jeff Awards, I'm sure, in 2 weeks. So we'll find out. I'll report back.
Does he remember Jack Wallace?
Hi, everyone. Let me just tell you that if you don't use the microphone, no one can hear you on Zoom. So please, could you put your hand up and then we'll get the mic to you. There was one more question on Zoom, I think, Ron? Or did we finish?
Does he remember Jack Wallace?
Jack Wallace was the other question.
I don't know.
Okay.
I wondered, have you been to any of the things at the Des Plaines Theater that opened?
So when they reopened it with
Michael
yeah.
Feinstein?
Yeah, I have not been there yet. I just talked with the lady who does the marketing, and we're going to be doing some stuff with them. The problem is there's been so much theaters and so many restaurants, and I only have a couple of writers. To cover everything is becoming harder and harder because it's like this week there's something every day. And I try to, like, my wife's going out of town, so it means I can go to matinees as well. So I'm going, like Saturday, I'm going to see 3 plays. Okay, Sunday, I'm going to go bowling, and then I'm going to go do my radio show, then I'm going to go to a play. I mean, it's just that crazy right now. So they do, I went a couple times to St. Charles, to their other plays. And, there used to be theaters that are gone, but that's concert stuff. And I have kind of a tie-in with Waukegan right now that is so time consuming, but I promised them a year ago and I made an agreement with them. And that's the problem when you're on radio, you have sponsors, you got to take care of your sponsors. Okay, I think we need to get the microphone.
I've got it. Just to revert back to my favorite topic, which is food. What are your 2 favorite restaurants? One in Chicago and the other in the north suburbs.
Well, actually, I'm very big on sushi, and I go to a place in Evanston called Koi, which is on Davis, right by Sherman. And I find that theirs is unbelievable. Her stuff is always great, always fresh. In the city, it's a little harder to talk about. I have so many that I kind of really. I used to have, back in the old days, Marcello's, which is in Northbrook, now used to be on North Avenue. And that was my spot when I went to a lot of the different places. But there's so many new places opening up. And I go, all the theaters are right now that I go downtown. I do find myself going to Petterino's a lot. And they were part of Let Us Entertain You, and they're not anymore. They're now owned by the people that also own a couple, the Hap Inn. It's one of theirs now. And Petterino's changed their menu a little bit, but it's still good food, and it's right there for the Goodman and for, I might as well take advantage of that. It's right there. Which one?
Escarole, the restaurant Escarole on Grand Avenue
No,
and Peoria Street.
I haven't. I don't think so.
Can you return to Milwaukee? Can you recommend theaters in addition to the Milwaukee Rep and also restaurants?
I can't do the restaurants because I already don't. They usually feed me when I go up there. But all the theaters are not just Milwaukee Rep. There's I can't think of all the names of all the theaters, but they have the Broadway series. If you go to around the town, you'll see some of the at around the town of Chicago. You'll find Milwaukee. Just put Milwaukee in there, and all those theaters will come up. They're all good, and they all work together. As far as bringing in talent, they make sure they don't have any conflicts. That's one of the nice things that Milwaukee does, Chicago doesn't do, is there's never a conflict. They never have two shows opening at the same time. So it makes it a lot easier. I'm sure they have less coverage because there's less people doing reviews. But that's, that is, I will try to get more up for Milwaukee because we are going to be adding around the town of Milwaukee. So I'll probably have a link.
Hi.
We need the
I have
microphone.
Microphone. I wanted to ask more about the Oil Lamp Theater. It's rather confusing in the newspaper ads or the newspaper columns. They say they sold the property around it. Did they sell Oil Lamp per se, or is Oil Lamp staying where it is?
As far as I know, it's staying where it is. And Oil Lamp is the people, they've changed management. They have
Right.
different people running it now. I'm pretty sure that they'll stay there I think they have 6 more years on their lease. So they didn't have to buy them out. What they like the location because they have a little parking lot next door, which does help. And it's really a quaint little theater. They did change. It used to be BYO. Now you got to buy from them. They got a liquor license, so they can make a little money on the drinks. It's a different world. But as far as I know, Jay said their plan is to be there for the next 6 years. All right. So
I've asked questions already.
I'll talk.
I have actually 2 questions. How is Tina? We're going to see it next week.
We're seeing Tina tomorrow night.
Oh, you haven't seen
Yeah,
it?
it doesn't open till tomorrow night.
Oh, okay. And there was talk about the Northlight Theater moving to Evanston.
Right.
Is that still happening?
Supposedly it's happening. They talk about it still happening. They're sharing the building now with another theater company. Plus they're bringing in all these other things. They were supposed to break ground a month ago, just to do the whole ceremony. They didn't do it. So we'll find out more. They said there's supposed to be something happening April 17th. There's a date that they gave us that they're to keep that date open. I don't even know what day of the week it is, but something is supposed to happen on the 17th. So whatever happens, I always put that kind of stuff in the news and in articles.
Okay, we're going to wrap it up. Big round of applause for Al.
Thank
Thank you so much. Great program.
My pleasure.